Again, now the Patriotic Alliance has withdrawn from two coalition governments in the Western Cape. This follows a fallout with the DA over Gayton McKenzie's appointment as Karoo Mayor. What does this mean for politics in the Western Cape? Let's speak now to political analyst, Professor Dirk Kotze. Prof, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. Well, there we go. Some people will say we don't know how to make coalition governments work in South Africa. But the electorate spoke loud and clear on the 1st of November last year during local government elections about the fact that political parties have to work together in terms of what came out from the ballot paper. This particular incident, I mean, from what I understand, Patriotic Alliance feels insulted by the DA in the Western Cape in these two local governments and accuses the DA of what it calls a bus-cup mentality.
Yes, that is so. And as you now mentioned, that it refers to two specific municipalities. The one is Knysna in the Southern Cape, and the other one is Matsikama on the west coast of the Western Cape. Both of them are very small councils or very small municipalities. So I think one should be careful not to draw or make an extension of saying, based on this, therefore it looks now it's sort of representative of the whole province of the Western Cape. Incidentally, there is very little of a coalition relationship between the DA and the Patriotic Alliance in the Western Cape, except for these two. And at some point in the beginning, for example, in Knysna, the Patriotic Alliance was first siding with the ANC. And one of the reasons which is part of the perspective one needs is that the Patriotic Alliance is actually much more involved in coalitions with the ANC. For example, the one that you referred to in the central Karoo district municipality around Beaufort West and Laingsburg, as well as two in the Northern Cape also. So I think in that sense, it's a party which is involved in different types of coalitions with different parties.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that the deputy of the party, Kenny Kunene, is saying they feel insulted because some comments were made by an official of the DA in those two areas, and then they regard this DA official as junior, and then they feel that their party president has been insulted. It seems to be less about ideology or politics or issues of service delivery, but more about egos. Or am I interpreting this incorrectly?
No, I think you're very much correct. And this deals specifically with the leader of the Patriotic Alliance, Gayton McKenzie, the fact that he was now elected as the new mayor of the district municipality of the central Karoo. So it was about the fact that he was first elected as a new member of the Council of Laingsburg, and on the basis of that, he was then elected now as the mayor for the district council. And I think the DA's reference is to the way in which he came as a complete outsider, because he was not a member or nominated in last year's November election for these councils, and then became involved in that. But that's obviously an internal matter between the DA and the DA.
The DA regarding or describing McKenzie's appointment as mayor of the Central Karoo District Municipality as political thuggery. Maybe the word thuggery, they didn't sit well with Mr. McKenzie and the Patriotic Alliance.
No, for sure, and given the fact that he and Mr. Kunene, it's common knowledge that they were in earlier years they were incarcerated, and I think it's a sensitive point for all of them that now that they said that they are politicians in their own rights, you must not refer back to their histories. That is still being sort of a point of reference from the DA side. I think that relationship between the DA and the Patriotic Alliance has become sour in general. And one of the reasons for it is that the DA says, but they don't know when they can trust them and when not, because they are moving between parties and between coalitions. On the one hand, they are part of the ANC coalition, and on the other hand, they want to be part of the DA coalition. So in that sense, from outside, it is also very difficult to follow where are they when, at what point in time, in which of these coalitions, because they move around. They, for example, have been part of the ANC's coalition in Johannesburg until the formation of the new leadership there. And when the DA won, then they moved over to the DA coalition and joined also the DA sort of group of coalitions within Tshwane and Ekurhuleni, although it's not necessary, they are not required in the case of Tshwane. So it is a type of politics which Mr. McKenzie himself has said he's willing to work or cooperate with any party, even the old AWB. Now, I think this is the type of politics which people not necessarily take very seriously, because one of the principles that many insist on when it comes to coalitions is that it must be coalitions of parties who think more or less alike and can cooperate and can create a stable relationship. And I think that's one of the aspects that the Patriotic Alliance still will have to work on.
Yeah, or at least, I mean, there should be some common ground in terms of certain objectives for delivery at the local levels. So you don't think that there is really much to be concerned about in terms of coalition politics, in this case in the Western Cape and elsewhere where the Patriotic Alliance has got coalitions, like you've pointed out, in Gauteng, things seem to be stable?
Yes, I think one should, because as I've said, it's a very small party. They received less than 1% of the votes last year. They've received 81 councillors out of more than 9,000 for the country as a whole. But they do play an important role in some of the smaller municipalities, like, for example, those two in Knysna or Matsikama or in the Northern Cape. And therefore, they can have an influence. But it is not one of the big role players. They want to present themselves as kingmakers, for example, in Johannesburg or in Ekurhuleni or even in Tshwane. That is not the case. They are simply too small for that. But it is a new party, and they want to establish themselves, and they want to assume a position which is possibly larger than what they are at the moment on the ground.
Yeah, I guess we have to keep an eye on these coalitions, Prof, because we're heading to 2024, and the biggest question still, including within the ANC, the governing party, is whether or not they'll get a majority vote come 2024. So coalition politics, wherever they are, since the local government elections on the 1st of November last year, are kind of interesting to watch, observe, and analyze. And thank you very much for your insights this afternoon on Today here, Professor Dirk Kotze. We're just looking at that matter of the Patriotic Alliance and the DA having a spat in two small municipalities in the Western Cape.